Sheriff Joyce, we know that you've done so much to help with the opiate crisis in the Cumberland County area. You've worked with Be the Influence quite a bit as well, and huge help to what we're trying to do here in Wyndham-Raymond. Tell us a little bit about what is going on just in the horizon with the opiate crisis. I know 418 people died in 2017, according to Janet Mills. What's happening?
Well, I think the unfortunate thing is there are still people dying. And for everyone that we hear about or the public hears about, there are several others that they're overdosing. So, the more we can get out and educate kids to stay away from drugs completely, not only opiates, but the gateway drugs and marijuana, et cetera, is very important. And I think Be the Influence is paving that way. And I'd like to see it throughout the county. Not that we aren't doing some good things throughout the county, but this seems to be centric to the schools, specific schools, and really drilling down on some of the issues that are facing kids. Kids are in a challenging situation now where they get peer pressure, a lot of opportunities to do things, and we need to make sure we point them in the right direction because there's no do-overs.
No, there isn't. And with society really educating in the opposite direction, that targeting children in terms of vaping and prescription drugs and marijuana and those types of things. What can we do when we're prescribing marijuana for anxiety and stress, and then that leads to prescription drugs, or athletes are taking prescription drugs for pain and it's leading to other things? What are some efforts that you're already engaging in, or what we need to be doing?
Well, unfortunately, there's a pill for everything, and all you got to do is watch TV and watch the medication ads. So kids are seeing that. Medical marijuana. Everyone's saying it's this harmless drug. We used it in the '60s and it wasn't that bad. This is not '60s marijuana. Oftentimes when you talk about medical marijuana, I prefer to get my medication from guys in white lab coats, not people in dungarees in the backyard that's growing. God knows what they have.
Right, it's the only non-FDA approved drug that we have, correct?
And the other thing is we have individuals that are always trying to make it more potent. It's a science fair project for these folks. So when people are going out and buying this marijuana, opiates, whatever, God knows what they're getting. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's why we're seeing overdoses, is people are buying what they think is heroin. And the reality is it may be very little heroin, but it's fentanyl, carfentanil, or anything else that's thrown in there.
Coming out of China?
So, China, Mexico, people are making it, or getting the byproducts and trying to make that. This is the thing. When people buy what they think they're buying, it's not necessarily what they're buying. No. We ought to take a lead from the people that sell this stuff, because guess what? They don't use it. If they use any drug, it isn't opiates. So they come up, they sell it. I say they come up. Most of it's coming from bigger cities up into Maine. And they're looking in the rearview mirror as they drive out of Maine, as our kids, our neighbors, our friends are being crippled by this poison. And
fentanyl is 50 to 100% more potent than regular heroin.
It's 50%, and carfentanil is 100%. So we're talking little granules of salt difference, and that's the thing. People don't know that. I heard the other day. I heard some high school student that it said something to a friend that if I take a pink pill, that's more safe than any other pills. I mean, there's a lot of confusion around with kids. I 3 years ago when Portland okayed marijuana, my granddaughter, who was in high school at the time, was scratching her head going, why is it legal in Portland, yet it's not legal in Maine? Now it's legal in Maine. We have confusion for kids.
We really do.
You mentioned vaping, you mentioned smoking, you mentioned drinking. Those, we've all seen that through our growing up and going to school. But things are much different today than they were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
So we have to.
They're still targeting youth still. I mean, if you look at vaping now, it's the smoking without guilt. It's all colors and flavors, and we're still targeting youth.
Yeah, they pry on the kids' senses. I mean, kids have enormous senses. They like bright colors, video games, and now they're, they, like you said, they're taking vapes and putting colors and flavors into it. It's unconscionable
Yeah.
that people are making money off this. But unfortunately, they are.
They are.
And unfortunately, they're able to, every time you put up a law, they find another way of going around it. And it's a struggle for the SROs that really are dealing with these kids every day.
And we know that society is seeing that there's an opiate crisis. That's very obvious to them, but they're not understanding that the marijuana use and any addiction is going to lead up to kids using heavier things.
There will be people that will say alcohol is not a gateway drug, marijuana is not a gateway drug. I walk through the largest drug rehabilitation or detoxification center, the Cumberland County Jail, every day. And I'll go up to people that are on opiates, that are using cocaine, that are using methamphetamines, and I'll say, let me ask you, did you start with marijuana? And generally the answer is yes. They will tell you it was a gateway drug for them. Yes, it's possible that somebody could use marijuana and never use it again. That's always possible, just like there are people that will drink alcohol and not become alcoholics or not turn to other drugs. But the reality is, for those people that have gone to opiates, generally it started as marijuana. The other thing out there is there are a lot of people that are using pills that are opiates that around us that we don't even know about, and that started from an injury or a surgery or something like that. So we're no longer talking about the back alley addict with a syringe in his arm. We're talking about people that probably have never committed a crime, that probably have a family that are doing, they're working, but on the way they're stopping at the methadone clinic because they're fighting this disease that they've got. So there's a lot of pressure around this opiates. You do have the gateway drugs, the people that started, they used opiates and got addicted by it. There are other people that started out just by virtue of being sick. Yeah. And we need to be aware of that.
And I would love to hear your ideas on some of the efforts that can be put into place. I know we're going to be doing a blitz with all the prescribers, because a lot of time prescribers are over-prescribing, and then patients go in and they don't know that they don't need to take oxycodone to overcome pain. There are alternatives. And so what are some of the things that you are doing to combat the opiate crisis?
Well, education. Anytime we can talk about it, anytime that we can, let the media come in, if inmates want to talk in the jail about, I can't talk other than what I know. I've never used it, thank God. I've never been in that situation. But if somebody has been in that situation and they know that the problem is, once you're addicted, this is an illness. And when they're moving away from that drug, their body just feels like they want to die. They're really craving that drug. The individual's not craving it. The individual's brain is craving it because it's been rewired to need it. It's
a behavioral health issue.
It is.
It's not a choice.
So, anytime that we can educate people is probably the best way. Law enforcement's done a 380 in the fact that, or 360 I should say, in the fact that, we're not locking people up now, we're trying to find people help. Yeah. We will lock up the people that sell, because those are the people that do deserve to be in jail. Right. But for the average person that's struggling every day, that's a disease.
And it's exciting to see that you're going to all these restorative practices. I know you do a lot of that in the schools as well, Seth. And, if you wouldn't mind just telling us, what are you seeing in the schools? Because you're directly in the trenches with these youth.
Right.
I think that the outside world believes it to be less of a problem than it is. What are you seeing?
So, like the sheriff was talking, I'm kind of at the bottom, you know what I mean? I'm at the very start of where this could lead up to, an opiate crisis. In Windham here at the high school, vaping is a huge thing for us. To me, that might be the worst, even probably worse than marijuana right now for me, as far as gateway and addiction and, kind of getting these habits going of, okay, there's something that I like to do, but now I just need it. I can tell you just this past year, we've had kids that are on a bell schedule. You'll see them leave their class, they'll go into a bathroom, and then they'll come back. We've had kids that have, gone into like a crisis mode because their teacher won't let them leave the class, and they have to end up in the nurse's office because they need to go vape. That's a huge problem for me. If you can't go, a 50-minute class without having to leave to go to the bathroom to use your vape, then that's going to
Nicotine is
lead.
one of the most addictive substances
That's
there
that's
are.
going to quickly lead into the realm of what Sheriff Joyce was talking about. Is, you know,
Absolutely.
you leave here and now you don't have someone watching you all the time, and now you have to make your own choices. That's a big part about what I'm seeing in the building actually.
Well, you know, they did a study of heroin users, and they found that like 91% or something, huge percentage, you might have even given me that number a while back, started with tobacco use. So we know how addictive that is, and so the importance of these as gateway drugs is just as important as the heroin user
Right.
as well.
And you know, like, we're not, you know, immune to it here. You know, I've had instances of pills around the school. I can tell you that those have flip-flopped a little bit in the 2 or 3 years I've been here. From marijuana and pill use, vaping has just gone through the roof. You know,
Percentage-wise, if you have to throw something out,
Oh.
and I know we have MIAS reports, but I think they tend to be low. Just
I think I probably had about 268 incidents here at the high school, and I would say probably half or a little more were probably tobacco related.
wow, that's huge.
Yeah. And you know, as far as the opiate, the crisis that the sheriff is dealing with on this level, down here at the education and the high school and middle school level, most of the fallout that I take on a day-to-day basis is actually like a social emotional thing. You know, you have the parents, the grandparents, the friends, the older siblings that are, you know, going through these crises outside of the high school, overdoses, any kind of event that will affect a family. That's what we deal with, is the fallout of, you know, how the kid is processing that, how the child is, you know, trying to get through what has happened to their family member or anything like that. And that's really where it kind of comes out around here. You know, kids crying in the hallway, you know, trying to figure out good ways to cope with what's going on in their family.
Yeah. It seems like children in general don't have good coping or resilience skills, and that's really where we need to work. It's not so much to tell them don't do it, but how do we give them the tools to walk away? And
Well, and again, that's, you know, part of my role here is a lot of counseling. You know, sitting down with kids. We have a lot of social work here, guidance counselors, teachers, staff. Our community is really, really good here about, you know, reaching out to these kids when they're, you know, in a time of need. Education is huge. You know, the sheriff pointed it out before that's where we need to start, is with all these kids in these high schools that are learning this stuff way sooner than they should be, in my opinion. And now they don't have any way to process it, and they're trying to do it on their own. You
Yeah.
know, and really guiding them, I think, is going to be the key to kind of putting a stopgap between what they're learning here and what they're going to continue to do when they leave here.
And I know Wyndham High School does a great job weaving it into the curriculum, and it permeates throughout the school and your newsletters and what your efforts are in the school as well. So, you know, kudos to you, but it's huge, it's overwhelming. These are billion-dollar industries that we're trying to combat, and it's very, very difficult. So what would you say, and in terms of restorative practice, what would you say is working, and what do we need to impart that would help this process?
Well, I mean, on my end, as far as day-to-day operations, with all the students that I deal with every day, you know, there's almost 1,000 kids, parents. The parents, for me, is the key part. Because you're starting to see now in a generational era where you've got parents that are having kids in which those parents didn't have the information that they needed. You know, information is key. Around this building, you've got kids that can access whatever they want at any point in time, and they're good at it. They will find the information they need in a second.
Yeah.
I can't walk from one end of the building to the other without someone knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's
they're getting a lot of misinformation
Right.
too from industries that have power.
so. Really, when I talk to parents, I tell them, listen, you have to, you know, I kind of try to put the responsibility on them. You need to keep up with your children. You know, you need to be more informed than they are. If you're not going home and reading news articles and trying to figure this stuff out, knowing that your kid is involved with this, then you're not doing what you should be doing. You know, and that's, you know, easier said than done, but that's education of parents is huge for us, and that's, you know, we've been reaching out to parents more and more and more and more through, you know, athletics, BTI, trying to get that message home that if your kids are struggling with these kind of things, then you need to, you know, stop it before it gets any worse.
And we're going to be doing a lot with the adverse childhood experiences and the correlation between substance misuse there as well, and so it's all part of the same ball game. But restorative practice, you're doing a lot with like the Maine Youth Court.
Yep.
And
Yeah, and we, I don't know if Assistant Principal Rossetti talked about it before. We have